I'm Monika Kinner-Whalen, and I've curated the Our Prairie and Fibre show here at the Affinity Gallery on Broadway in Saskatoon. I started working in fibre about 5 years ago. Well, I started quilting probably 15 years ago, but didn't know there was such a thing as quilting art or art quilts, so that was new to me, and it's been about 5 years since that term was given to me, and I remember just being so shocked, thinking, really, you can sew art? I had no idea. I'd never heard of that because I'd taken art all my life in school and fibre was never part of it, right? So that was awesome. I had never found a medium that I really enjoyed as much as this. So I took off with that, and my main themes are prairies because that's what's near and dear to my heart. So the intent of this exhibition was to display prairie fibre art, to show visitors to the gallery the love that we have for our prairies. And the second intent, I thought I would like to use the opportunity for the show to also display the vast array of fibre art that is out there. There's a lot of different fibre art. So I tried my best to bring in as many pieces of fibre art to represent all areas of the craft. This exhibition has examples of felting, wearables, quilting, crochet, knitting, embroidery, rug hooking, and they're 2D wall art pieces. There are three-dimensional sculptural pieces, and there are wearables. So there's a nice range. I tried to make it so that there was lots to take in with the show, lots of forms. I was born and raised on the prairies and moved away for about 10 years and was very homesick and wasn't expecting to be so homesick. So coming back was a big reunion. It was very nostalgic for me, and I've been trying to soak up as much prairie as I can since being back. It's been another 10 years back now, but I still never knew how much I would miss it till I leave. You hear people say that all the time, but I actually very strongly experienced that firsthand. So that was part of my passion, was to show off the prairie. Also, so many people complain about driving through the prairie, that it's the worst experience ever because there's nothing to look at and nothing to see. And so this was my chance to be a little more public and gather more people together, because I'm sure I'm not the only one who disagrees with that. And I love this show that it's not just your summer day, it's not just, blue sky in a field. There's so much more to the prairie to enjoy. We opened the show up to Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Alberta because when you think of prairies, I didn't feel right about the borders. The borders don't really mean anything when you're talking about actual landforms, right? So that's why I thought I would like to open it up to all 3 prairie provinces. I did some studio visits as well to fill in the blanks, because after responses came in from call for entries, there were still some pieces that I needed to find that I hadn't found yet. So it was a bit like treasure hunting, which I really enjoyed. I had some studio visits, going to artist studios. I also had some artists come to me because it was such a long process of over a year. It was nice that a lot of people happened to be coming through Saskatoon or to Saskatoon, and so they used that opportunity to bring me their art to show me in person, which we were both quite excited about in many cases. I also took a trip to Edmonton, Alberta. They had a juried prairie fibre show, so that was a great opportunity for me to go and see. And then finally, at the very end, I had enlisted some help from contacts I had in Manitoba. I traveled to Winnipeg a couple years ago, so I had some contacts there that helped me fill in the blanks at the very end, and the show came together. There's so much more to the prairie. I think we're very lucky to have 4 distinct seasons here, and that we get to enjoy so many different textures and colors and activities as well each season. And when each season comes, there's always quite a celebration. I find, like the first rain or the first mosquitoes, well, we don't celebrate that, but the first snowfall and the first leaves falling, it just reminds us of new activities that we're going to be doing, right? So I certainly thought it was important to show our love for winter and our love for autumn and our love for spring in the show, not just summer. So, and as for elements, when I think of all the times I've ever mentioned prairie to people, they always think farmland. So they think earth, and sometimes people here always think sky, but it was important for me to also incorporate things that are so much a part of prairie life, which is water. Water is huge to people on the prairie. We all go to the lake. We all skate on the lakes. We fish. And it's not always, I find, represented, maybe northern Saskatchewan, but the prairie, the actual flat prairie water is huge, right? Marshlands and everything. And the wind, there's air. I was really excited to find pieces that represent air in this show because it's not really something you can see, so that's represented here too. And it just feels more well-rounded, just to show how well-rounded the prairie is. I like talking about the elements of it all, like, you know, like even the sunlight on the water, or the Jane Evans piece just has this fire coming through the trees, and she's really captured that. And the clothesline piece is awesome, watching everything blow in the wind. There's a point in collecting all the pieces, though, where I felt I was so busy trying to find, you know, I need a winter piece, or I need an air piece, or oh, I need weaving, and we have to have crochet in this, and where's the embroidery? And so once I had filled in all of my checklist of what I wanted in the show, I had a moment of worrying that it's such a mishmash of things. I worried about it being too much like pizza, just all mixed up, and that it wouldn't be cohesive. But once I started to look at all the pieces together, something just clicked, and everything seemed to come together. And there were some key pieces that really tied in the whole show. And that was that they were pieces made by women. It was a nice surprise to find this third theme in the show. So we have prairie and we have fiber art, but that it's women's connection to the land and the land's connection to women, and the life cycles, you know, all that just really brought the whole show together for me, which felt really good to have it so strong. Like the whole collection really made sense as a group, as a whole. This show has had some big, profound, unexpected learning moments with this, and I think with my own personal work, you know, I stitch the prairies, I stitch what I love. But the strongest pieces in this show for me that I had to have in this show, there was something about them that made them so much more than that. They were the pieces where the artist really expressed themselves and their emotions in the piece, and they really put themselves into the art. And personal and private moments in time that are expressed in the art, those are the pieces in the show that I will never forget. They really got me on an emotional level, and I realize that's something I've never really done in my work, and it feels vulnerable, but it just is so worth it. Those are the most profound pieces in the show for me, so I'm really amazed at the bravery in some of the people of what they've done in this. And actually, one of the comments in the book when I was looking through, one person had written that they love the honesty in the show, and that totally speaks to what I'm talking about, that there's a lot of really heartfelt personal pieces in here, and that just makes for very strong art because people respond to that. So that's very, very inspiring to me. That's something I want to work towards as well. So I wouldn't mind trying this again. It would have to be a show that I really feel strongly about. I think that really made this a strong show in the first place. But I think I will need to wait a while before I delve into something like that, because there's a lot with curating this that I need to digest. I think I have to journal a bit and see how that changes my work. So I still have to, take it all in and see where I go from here. So I certainly wouldn't say no to curating again, though. The way it came together as being a women's exhibition, and there really became evident to me how the femininity that ran through all the pieces, because they were made by women. There's vessels, there's baby animals, there's baskets of eggs, eggs being, you know, sort of a female symbol, and there's dresses and gowns, and a mother of the bride dress, which is a big event in a woman's life. There's also aprons, so there's the mundane, right? And those were hand-stitched, so those were a gift from a prairie woman to her children or grandchildren. And so the work that she put into that as a gift, her stitching. One thing I wasn't expecting with this show, with curating, was using the stories. If you come to the gallery, you'll see each piece has a story on the wall with it. There was a piece in particular that I was so intrigued by, but I didn't know what was going on in the picture. There's a woman in the scene, and I couldn't see her face, and I didn't know what she was thinking or what she was doing there. And so I asked the artist what exactly that was about and what was going on. And when she told me her story about leaving her homeland of Quebec and coming to the prairies and trying to find something to love, trying to find her place on the prairie, and it was her moment of finally connecting, that just made, the story just made that piece so much more important to the show. And at that point is when I started asking other artists for their stories, especially if I wasn't quite sure the whole picture. It really helped to clarify everything, and there's beautiful stories in here. So that made the whole show really heartfelt, and the stories are very important, I think, to how people connect with the pieces, whether they're from the prairies or not. So there's a piece by Judy Weiss that is felted and stitched, and it's this beautiful meadow, and there's flowers and trees, and you know, everything's green and lovely, and it's called Mosquito Country. So the titles are surprising on some of them, and they make great stories themselves. The story with this one was they saw this beautiful space and got out of their vehicle to enjoy it up close and personal, and were attacked by swarms of mosquitoes and had to run back to the vehicle. So it's a good prairie story as well. The Ice That Hid the Sky is another really great title, I think, that was won by a torn landscape by the late Heather Lair, and it has a big black formation, and it was the ice, like during breakup in the spring. There was just this one piece left, and it blocked her view. That was a good title as well. We also have a video installation in the show, and that was a wonderful find in my treasure hunting for our Prairie and Fibre. Holly Hildebrand was referred to me as someone that I could use for a curatorial mentor, since I didn't have experience being a curator. So I spoke to her about the show, and the more I spoke to her about how I felt about the show and about the pieces and my goals, I said, oh, and I need something that shows the wind. Like, if it's a show full of women's fiber art, I need to have a clothesline. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And she said, I have a video of a clothesline. So we even have a video installation, which I think is really unique for a fiber show. And it's a clothesline out on the prairies with hand-dyed fabrics that are moving at different times in the wind. So it's called Prairie Prayer Flags, which is awesome. So I'm really happy with the range of things that I found. I'll be sad when the show is over. Once the show pieces were all together, I went over everything to make sure, as far as I knew, I wasn't missing anything, and knitting needed to be represented. And I needed a yarn bombing. I decided, since the gallery was kind of full, it would be great to have a yarn bombing outside. And if you're not sure what that is, that's knitting with yarn and installing it on trees or posts. One of the artists came all the way from Regina with a charted pattern she had created on her own, and it's snowflakes, and it's wrapped around a post just outside the gallery on the street on Broadway here. So that was the perfect addition to the show in January. The rug called Our Lady of the Prairies was one of the first pieces that I curated into the show, and I was very excited about that one. There's a woman with her halo, and it's like Mary, and she's got an arm full of lilies, the prairie lilies, and wheat spilling out of her arms, and she's looking at them reverently, and the border is all wheat and lilies as well, and there's a banner at the bottom that says, Our Lady of the Prairies, and for me, that piece was almost a cornerstone that connected all of the pieces. And all of the pieces connected back to that, so this women's reverence for their homeland, so that was a good piece to have.